Hello and welcome to the Creators Guild podcast. I'm Chris Howell and with me,
Jared Lovelady.
and we are here to talk about all things creative. And I'm kind of offset over to the side over here today because we're going to have somebody joining us. So if you're watching on video, you will get to see me read and hear me read next to a nice, comfy, empty chair. And we're going to start, as we usually do, reading another chapter from A Flight from Shadows. So we're going to dive right in. Chapter 30, Another Attack, Cycle of Ryo, year 12182. To fall in one's duty to family and house is an honor reserved for only the most valiant of souls. Corporal Redden Thorg, House Harshai, date unknown. Tawara was sprawled on her stomach. The weight of a body pressed her to the floor. Hands held her tightly, grinding her face into the runner. A gruff voice told her not to move. The sound of a blade being drawn made her blood run cold. She was suddenly back in the clearing. She could taste dirt and blood in her mouth, smell the grass. Would she feel a blade pierce her side and slowly reach for her heart once more? Her mind reeled. They were going to succeed this time, whoever they were. This time she would die. If they were in the palace and had been able to get to her like this, she and Athandra had little chance of surviving. It was the thought of Athandra that brought her back. She was not in the clearing, and these were not assassins. They had been caught. Somehow the old man sent men after them. But how? And what would they do? Had Athandra been right about their religious fervor, and now they were going to die for spying? She couldn't raise her head to look around. Athandra! She cried out. The weight on her back shifted, and she reacted without thinking. She rolled hard to the side, and felt the weight on her back move with her. Whoever it was must have adjusted his hold, or was getting ready to stand. He rolled with her and crashed into the wall. She twisted away, feeling hair tear from her head as she spun and found her feet. She took in the scene in an instant. A man in a bronze palace guard's uniform and breastplate was sprawled on the floor. He shifted to get to his feet. A pace away, a second man was on top of Athandra. He was just beginning to turn to look in her direction. "What are you doing?" The man on Athandra's back yelled at the other. "Get up, get her. Don't let her get away." His face became a mask of shock when Tawara didn't run. Instead, she closed the distance between them. She seized the man by his conical helmet and in one swift movement planted her knee hard into his face. The man's nose burst in a spray of blood as he was thrown off Athandra with the force of the blow. She turned to face the second assailant, who had gained his feet and was rushing forward, a blade in one hand. Tawara's training with Master Duchesne in the use of her hands and feet as weapons against an armed assailant paid off. She fell to the floor. She fell to the runner, just as the man reached her and rolled onto her back. She then thrust both feet into his oncoming groin. Her attacker was lifted off his feet by the impact. A high-pitched squeal of pain escaped his lips as the blade dropped from his hand. His forward momentum carried him over Tawara, and he sprawled on the floor. Rolling to her side, she seized the dropped blade, bounded to her feet, and rushed the man with the ruined nose, who had regained his footing. He screamed in pain and fell back as she plunged the blade into his thigh. She wrenched the blade free, extracting another satisfying scream before turning toward the second figure. He held both hands to his groin, vomit pooling on the floor beside him. "We have to run," she shouted to Athandra. "We need to get away before more of them come." She grabbed Athandra's hand and pulled her to her feet. If they could get to her father, surely he could help them. Her mind faltered when she realized someone was calling her name. The sound of running footfalls accompanied the voice. She looked up to see Captain Ethrin sprinting down the corridor, one arm in a sling, the other held out. "Tawara, stop! Tawara!" he shouted, his voice echoing off the stone walls. She stood, stunned. What was Ethrin doing here? Her mind was reeling. The entire incident had taken only seconds, and she was having trouble connecting what had just happened with Ethrin being there. The captain slowed, his face a mask of concern. "What's happening here, Princess?" Ethrin asked as he stopped near the man on the floor, who still held his crotch. A small group of House Himari guards came to a stop behind the captain. "That is what I want to know," Tawara said, feeling a bit dumbfounded. Words spilled from her mouth in a rush. "We did not mean to do anything wrong. We were just curious. Did the old man tell on us? How did he even get to anyone so quickly? I will not let them harm Athandra." "What are you talking about?" Ethrin asked. "What old man?" Princess, are you all right? Is Athandra harmed? She looked at him, then glanced over her shoulder at Athandra, who nodded, despite the confusion painting her face. We are both all right, she said, feeling lost. The pieces would not come together in her mind. Were they in danger? How and why was Ethrin here? What in the bloody hell was happening? Ethrin immediately turned away from her, stepping past the guards who were with him to address the small group at the opposite end of the hallway that Tawara had not noticed. His tone brooked no nonsense as he gave precise commands. Pike, Cheser, Ayler, to me, now. 3 high elf youths, who looked to be less than 100 years of age, 2 boys and a girl, sprinted from the group to stand in a straight line in front of the captain. They wore night clothes, but each had a messenger's sash and cap, and had stout leather shoes. They must have been pulled from their beds to do the captain's bidding. Pike, Ethrin continued, as the 3 came to a halt. Go to the Baron, tell him the princess has been found and is unharmed. Jezer, go to the vice-chairman, give him the same message, and add that his men should remain on guard, as we do not know if there are any additional threats. Tell him I believe it is safe to allow any guests who have been disturbed to return to their beds. Ayler, find my lieutenants. Tell them to coordinate with the house guard to stop their search. They are to patrol and report anything out of sorts to me immediately. I will call them in for further instructions when I am ready. They are to remain where they are, so I can find them easily. Go, now. The messenger sprinted away, disappearing around a corner at the far end of the hall. Ethrin turned back to Tawara, letting out a heavy sigh as he returned to stand in front of her. Now, why did you attack these guards? Ethrin asked her. She was astounded. She attacked them? They attacked us, Athandra said from behind Tawara. We came out of the door and they jumped on us. They were going to kill us. Is this true? You attacked the princess? Ethrin demanded, looking at the man Tawara had stabbed. He sat with his back against the wall. One hand held his nose, the other his thigh. Blood covered his face and hands, and a pool formed on the floor where he sat. The princess? The man said in surprise. He winced in pain as he spoke. We didn't know she was the princess. Why were they trying to sneak out of the door? We thought some of the assassins might have come back. We didn't know the door was supposed to be locked. No one but the guild are supposed to use it. He looked at Tawara and back at Ethrin, panic in his eyes. The captain sighed, rubbing his temples with his good hand. Tawara thought she heard the word idiots whispered under his breath. Rolling his eyes, he dropped his hand back to his side. My lady, we sent these men to guard your rooms and to inform us if you were seen. Your bedchamber has been ransacked. There were a group of some 5 or 6. They confronted some of us directly. 3 of my men were killed, and I was injured. All of them got away. We did not expect anything like this. When we discovered your room the way it was, and no trace of you or Athandra, we could only suspect. He shrugged, sighing again in exasperation. Tawara paused at that, focusing on the captain. His hair was disheveled, and his usually crisp clothing was anything but. His tunic was ripped, and his left arm hung in a makeshift sling. The sleeve was missing on that side, and his upper arm was wrapped in a blood-soaked cloth. The realization dawned on her. This had nothing to do with their expedition to spy on the Zaparans. What happened to you, Captain? Tawara asked. There was an attack on the palace, Ethrin said calmly. Well, not precisely on the palace, but another attempt on your life. This one was more blatant than the last ones. She stood, stunned into silence. It was happening again. Even so far away from home, in the protection of another city, the threat followed her. Tawara looked at the men on the floor. The one she had stabbed had gone pale, the pool of blood dangerously large. The other leaned against the wall, looking rather pale himself. She looked back at Ethrin, who returned her gaze. Compassion and empathy filled his expression. Which of your men did they kill? She asked softly. Turian, Galish, and Vilnar. All good men. She knew all 3 of them. They had been with Ethrin when he found her in the canyon. She didn't know them well, but Vilnar always made her laugh. 3 more dead, she said, adding them to the mental tally she had started since the deaths of the drunken youths. Ethrin stepped forward slowly. He reached down and took the blade from Tawara's hand and passed it behind him to one of his men. It is not your fault, the captain said gently, as if reading her thoughts. She looked up at him. Not my fault. Not my fault. They want to kill me, and every time someone else ends up dead in my stead. How can you say it is not my fault? My lady, the actions of others cannot be placed on your head, he said calmly. She appreciated the sincerity of his words, but she did not believe him. She broke eye contact and turned her attention to the man bleeding on the floor. "He needs attention before he bleeds to death," she said, as she changed the direction of the conversation. Captain Ethern responded to the change in mood immediately. "You two," he said, pointing. "See to his wounds. Try to staunch the bleeding. You, run for a healer." The men reacted without hesitation. "Will he be all right?" Tuara asked one of those helping the man on the floor. "The question is, will you be all right? The oaf deserves what he got," Athondra interjected. "He may have a limp, my lady," the man replied. He looked at Tuara respectfully, admiration clear in his voice. "I dare say, my lady, when word of you taking down 2 guards single-handedly gets out, perhaps any other assassins will think twice." "Or think to send more or better assassins next time," Athondra said, fear and agitation playing in her tone. Tuara and Ethern both looked at Athondra blankly. "What?" she asked, and looked back and forth between them. Tuara ignored the question and turned back to Ethern. "Captain, I would like to see what exactly happened in my room." Ethern gave her an exasperated look. "This way, my lady," was all he said, turning down the hallway toward Tuara's door. Tuara started to follow, but was stopped by Athondra. "My lady," she said, "we should probably put these back on." She held out Tuara's riding boots. Tuara felt a laugh burst from her lips. She suddenly felt hysterical and could not stop laughing. Her eyes began to water as she reached out for the boots. It took 2 tries through her blurry gaze to grab them. Still laughing, she turned and ignored the looks from Athondra and the guards in the hallway. She stumbled after Ethern, her boots slung over her shoulder. She was still wiping her eyes when she caught up to the captain. He stopped just in front of the door and turned to face her. "Well, something was obviously very funny," he said quizzically. "It is nothing," she said. "I think it is just the stress, or the tiredness getting to me." She took the boots from her shoulder and held them up in front of the captain. "My boots," she said, and she was struck with another fit of laughter. Ethern stared at her blankly, not getting the joke. Tuara didn't get it either. For some reason, the whole scenario playing out in her mind in stocking feet just seemed hilarious. I'm sorry, Captain," she said as she dropped to the floor. "Give me just a moment." The captain stood patiently as she pulled her boots on. She still chuckled to herself. Athondra sat and pulled hers on as well. "There," Tuara said, standing. "We may proceed, Captain." She clicked her heels together as she spoke and barely got the last words out through more laughter. Why was she laughing at her boots? Maybe she was going mad. Ethern sighed heavily and turned to push the door open. He didn't use the handle. As the door swung inward, a sudden soberness struck Tuara. Behind her, Athondra gasped. The frame around the latch was shattered. It would have taken a huge blow to shatter the solid wood frame in such a manner. Inside, it was utter chaos. The contents of the room were in complete disarray. The beds were ripped to shreds. The floor was covered in shards of what had once been the 2 mirrors. The wardrobe lay toppled against the overturned vanity. One door hung open, and the other door was missing, and Tuara didn't see it anywhere in the room. Her trunk that had sat in the corner lay in the middle of the room, and looked as though it had been stepped on by a giant. Her dresses, shifts, and other articles of clothing were strewn about. They, too, had been slashed and shredded. There was nothing in the room that had not been damaged beyond use. Even the sconces had been ripped off the walls. The window, too, had been shattered. A candelabra had been brought in and sat in the middle of the room. Its light flickered in the night breeze that whispered in through the broken window. There was a strong metallic smell, and a red substance coated everything, as though a wineskin had been uncorked and sprayed everywhere. Tuara swallowed hard. "Is that what I think it is, Captain?" she asked hesitantly. "It is, my lady," he replied in a low voice. "We have called for an alchemist to determine if it is animal blood or otherwise." "Why would anyone do this?" Athondra asked in astonishment. "How could they do this? How did no one hear?" "All very good questions," Ethern replied, "ones for which I am sorry to say we have no answers. The best we can determine is that this is a message. Whoever did this wanted it known that you are the clear target. There is no one in the palace that will not know of this by mid-morning. Most of the palace was likely awakened and knows some part of what happened here already. The rumors will grow. Some will begin to steer clear of House Umari. Others will make moves to offer protection or keep themselves from appearing as accomplices or targets of investigation. Regardless, in a short period of time, Parome and Kubia will all know that you are a prime target for whomever is threatening the realm." Tuara squeezed her folded arms tighter against herself and gave a slight shiver. "I've seen enough, Captain," she said. "I think I would like to find a steward and retire to whatever corner has been found for Athondra and me." Her mind felt disconnected from what she saw and heard. Why her? There were other princesses and princesses-elect in the realm. Why make a special target of her? The captain looked at her sympathetically. "I will escort you, my lady. I believe I know the most likely area to look." He turned and called 3 of the guards standing in the hallway. 2 he instructed to stay with them as they walked. The 3rd he ordered to run ahead to the lower house quarters, locate the house steward, and report back. The remainder of people in the hallway were additional messengers. Ethrin told them all to return to their beds and get some sleep while they could. He would be waking them in shifts to replace the 3 he had sent away. They had descended the first flight of stairs on their way to meet with the steward when Pike returned, still at a run. He stopped in front of the captain and took only a moment to recover his breath. "Captain, Princess Tuara, Baron Umari asked that you come to his rooms immediately." The youth had a look of concern painted on his face and an urgency to his voice. "What is it, Pike?" Ethrin asked. "What else has happened?" Pike stuttered for a moment as he responded. "Well, it's his injury, sir." "But it was only a scratch," Ethrin said, sounding uncharacteristically bewildered. "That is what he meant you to think, sir," Pike replied, dropping his eyes to the floor ashamedly. He wanted you to find the princess. He made me swear." Wetness glistened in Pike's eyes, and the captain stepped forward, placing a hand on his shoulder. "It's all right, lad. You did as you were told. Baron Umari did what he thought was right. Go, get some rest. Send Tybon to take your place." Pike looked up, meeting the captain's eyes. "I'd like to stay, sir. I'll swap with Tybon in a couple of hours. Give him a chance to rest." "Good lad," Ethrin said, stepping back. "Go find yourself some food, and then return straight to the Baron's rooms. I'll expect you to be there, waiting after we've spoken to him." "Yes, sir," Pike replied and strode toward the kitchens. Tuara watched the exchange, apprehension rising in her chest. "My father is injured?" "He had a minor injury. I'm sure he is fine. He probably wants to make sure you are well with his own eyes." Ethrin's voice was calm, but Tuara could see the doubt in his eyes. That is not what Pike said, Captain. He said it was worse than father let on." "I am sure there is nothing to worry about, Princess." "You said that already, Captain, and you rarely take the time to repeat yourself. Please take me to my father's rooms as quickly as you can. I would like to hear precisely what happened to him along the way." The confidence normally found in Ethrin's face returned at Tuara's direction. "Certainly, my lady. This way." He strode forward at a brisk pace, forcing Tuara and Athondra to nearly jog to keep up. As they made their way to the Baron's room, Ethrin shared what had happened that evening. He and the Baron, along with a few of his men and some Paramese clerks, were discussing new armor as they walked through the palace. They had rounded a corner and were met by 5 men. They were all high elves, dressed in leather jerkins and fitted with multiple weapons. 3 had swords already drawn. When they saw Ethrin and the Baron, they immediately attacked. Ethrin and his men were able to draw their swords, but not before they were on the defensive. They fought the men while trying to raise the alarm. The confrontation lasted only moments before a squad of Alkari guards arrived. The men disengaged and fled, but Ethrin was wounded, and 3 of his men were killed. Baron Umari was also injured. Ethrin had tried to stay by the Baron's side, but he refused. He told Ethrin his wound was superficial and ordered him to find Tuara and protect her at all costs. Ethrin had left the Baron with the remaining soldiers and ordered him to take the Alkari guards and get the Baron back to his room. He would gather more of his men and make sure the princess was safe. They had discovered her room in shambles and had immediately roused the palace to find Tuara. They were in the process of coordinating the search when Tuara had her confrontation with the Paramese guards in the hallway outside her room. Pike had been the one carrying messages between Baron Umari and Ethrin. Tuara felt for the youth, but could only give a brief thought for the position he'd been put in. How bad was her father's injury? She pleaded with the gods that he would be okay. They had passed through the central portion of the palace and came to the eastern wing, which contained lavish, high-ceilinged rooms adorned with marble panels and intricately carved statues. Gold stenciling adorned nearly every surface, and every piece of furniture seemed to be a template piece for both decadence and comfort. "Well, at least he should be comfortable," Tuara said in an attempt to lighten her own mood. Ethrin smiled at her knowingly. "The soldiers' quarters are a bit more austere." Athondra laughed nervously at the comment. The exchange seemed to do nothing to lift Tuara's spirits. They crossed the tile mosaic in an antechamber that was larger than the reception hall at the Omari Manor House before ascending a set of double steps that wrapped the perimeter of the room. Tri-folding doors, twice Tawara's height, were drawn open by two Alkari males who bowed as the three approached. Through the doors sat the largest bed Tawara had ever seen. It could have slept a squad of soldiers and still had room to spare. It sat on a raised platform with its own set of marble steps and a railed veranda. A tall Alkari female and a short, plump Paramese woman stood on the veranda next to the bed. They wore matching white diaphanous robes that flowed gently as they shifted their attention to Tawara, the captain, and Athandra. Hidden in the mass of pillows and comforters, Tawara spotted her father. He looked comically small in the gargantuan bed. Had the situation not been so concerning, she would have laughed at the scene. She rushed forward, ascended the stairs, and slipped past the two women. Her father lay an arm's length in on the bed, close enough for the healers to reach him. His face was pale, and perspiration beaded his brow. "Father," she said as she gently sat beside him. His eyes opened slowly and wandered the room before coming to rest on Tawara. "Daughter," he said, sliding his hand across the blankets to find hers. "How are you, father?" she asked in a soft voice. "Not well, I am afraid." He winced. His hand squeezed hers weakly. "The healers say there is nothing more they can do. I do not have much time." "What do you mean?" she asked, feeling her heart begin to race. She looked to the Paramese woman, who was the closest of the two healers. "I am afraid he has lost too much blood," the woman said in heavily accented Kuvish. "We tried to stop the bleeding, but he is bleeding on the inside. The wound was too deep, and we were not called in time. I am sorry, Princess." "But no, there must be something you can do. He can't just—" She turned to Ethrin. "Tell them. You have seen wounded soldiers. Tell them they can fix him. You told me he would be all right." Ethrin spread his hands, his mouth moving, but no sound came out. His face was a mask of pain and confusion. He finally found his voice. "I thought it was just a scratch. I was sure." He shook his head, dropping his gaze the way Pike had. "I am sorry, Tawara. So very sorry." "No," she said, a stubborn anger welling up, as she turned back to her father. "This Alkari and human, what do they know about high elves and their strengths? You will be fine. We will find one of our own healers, and they will set you to rights." She spoke with such conviction that she almost believed her own words. Her father smiled up at her. "If only your will alone could heal, I would be doing cartwheels on the lawn in a day." She let out a half chuckle, half sob as she bent forward and kissed his forehead, squeezing her eyes shut to hold back the tears that were fighting to overwhelm her. "Why did you not call for them sooner?" she whispered as she lingered at his side. "I needed to know you were safe," he replied. "I am sorry I let my fear for you overcome my senses, and now we will lose each other anyway, but I am glad you are safe." "Oh, Father," she said softly, the dam beginning to break as tears rushed out, and she felt her body shake with sobs. It lasted only a moment before she fought for control once more, taking a calming breath and wiping her face as she sat up to look at him again. Tears ran down his cheeks as well, and she gently wiped them with a soft caress. "I am so proud of who you have become," he said softly. "I know I have not been what I should have. Losing your mother broke something in me, but I should not have let the tragedy risk harm to you." "No," she said to him, "do not regret the life you have given me." "Seek after your dreams, Tawara," he said, squeezing her hand once more. "Follow your mother's desires for you. Become Accolade. Become Queen. Take the path I was too afraid to point you down. You are strong and brave. Do not do this for me or for your mother. Do it for you. Don't let yourself look back and regret." She shifted his hand to her lips, kissing it gently. "I will, Father. I will not give up." "Athandra," he said, glancing around the room as best he could. "Where is Athandra?" "I am here, Baron," Athandra said, joining Tawara and kneeling beside the bed. The Baron reached his hand out, and Athandra took it. He guided her hand and placed it on top of Tawara's. "Remember what I told you when we first spoke, Athandra. Remember what I asked of you." "I remember, Baron. You told me to stand by your daughter." "Yes, do not forget." He coughed, wincing in pain, and his breath came in short gasps as he squeezed his eyes shut. His breathing settled, and he opened his eyes again, speaking softly, but with what authority he could muster. "Athandra, I want you to swear. Bind yourself to my daughter. You are not of our kind, and your people live differently than we do. She will need your insight, your guidance, and your love. Swear above all else that you will stand by her side and remain her loyal friend and companion. Stay with her. Protect her." Athandra looked at Tawara, and Tawara saw the true compassion her friend had for her. Their eyes remained locked as Athandra spoke. "I swear, Baron, I swear that I will remain true to Tawara and stay by her side. My fate is bound to hers." Her father looked at her again. "I wish we could have seen the city together. Your first time leaving Avalonia, I would have liked to see your face as you explored." He smiled weakly at her, and his eyes fluttered, then closed. Tawara watched as his breath quickened momentarily, then stopped. She leaned forward, resting her head on his chest, letting her tears fall once more. "Goodbye, father," she said softly between sobs. "Go in good spirits to your final rest." She sat unmoving for a time, until she felt Athandra rise from beside her. She stood then, taking one more shuddering breath, before composing herself, and, bending over, pulled the blankets up and tucked them under the Baron's chin. He could have been sleeping, tucked like a child in a giant bed. A sad laugh escaped her at the thought. She should have shared the joke with him. He would have found it amusing. She turned to see Athandra's tear-streaked face. She knew the other woman had been crying on her behalf, and she stepped forward to envelop her in a tight embrace. "I'm glad you were here with me," she said. "I am glad to have such a friend." The end of chapter 29. Thoughts? Comments?
Well, it's a it's a powerful chapter.
Yeah, coming right out of, when they go down, they witness the blood binding, and we wanted to add that drama in of who's attacking them, and then they think, oh, it's going to be okay, and then nope, all is not okay. So, probably picked up on events like this from a character perspective, catalyst for change.
Yeah.
And that's we had bounced around with when her father was going to die. How many times?
Several. At first, he didn't die at all,
Yeah.
and then we were going to kill him off really early.
Well, and her father changed, like part of, along with when he died, also his personality changed.
Yeah. Originally, he had more of Corvin's personality,
Yeah.
and then we added. That was before we had Corvin in the story. And we
Yeah.
added Corvin and said, "Well, we can't have them both be jerks."
Yeah. Yeah. At first, it was because her mother died. Her father became cold and rigid and just ridiculously overbearing and totally uncaring. Almost like since we kind of took the approach since her mother died while they were out riding. It's not that he blamed her, but he took it out on her.
Yeah.
The whole time. And then we shifted it to kind of like Wormtongue in Lord of the Rings, that Corvin was like the Wormtongue bad guy and had turned him against Tawara. And then he died early on, but she was kind of like, well, he was a jerk face anyway, but now I'm really alone. But I've been surrounded by jerk faces. And then we shifted it to, no, he's not going to die right at the beginning of the book. Her mother's going to die at the beginning of the book. Her father dies at the end, close to the end of this book.
Yeah.
And then we said, well, if he's going to die, let's make him, he hasn't been really good. He's been kind of overprotective of her entire life, but he's been kind to her. They've been friends, but he's held back just what he said before he died. Like, he hasn't been the father that he wanted to be, or, that he thought he should have been for a daughter who is going to try to be the queen's accolade.
Yeah. He was more of, I don't know, I Disneyland dad, kind of.
Yeah, they shared like the experience at the beginning with the cream and bread and honey. They had experiences like that where they have their moments, but most of the time he's doing business and then they just have like a companionable relationship.
Yeah.
But other than that, she's still kind of isolated and alone, but she loves her father. But she ends up, because he's gone and everything, she's spent most of her time under the direction of Tessera and Corbin.
Mm-hmm.
So, but yeah, we moved around when he was going to die, though. Went
Several
from
times.
not at all to the beginning, to the middle, back to the beginning, and then a little bit later, and then all the way to the end. So, yeah, I don't know. We've said all book one is kind of like one big chapter one. It's a little bit different approach than different stories take, but that's how we're doing it. So
Yeah. I think it works.
I think so. Some people might not. Some people might enjoy other writing styles, and that's okay. I enjoy a lot of different storytelling styles, and hopefully this one works. And there are a lot of people that, hopefully, a lot of people do like it. Well, we are going to be joined today by somebody who's been with us a few times. So we've got his nice little rocking chair, swivel rocking chair that he can come sit in. So welcome back, Caleb.
Hey, thanks for having me back on.
How are things?
Things are fine. Normal stuff every day, mundane things that nobody really wants to hear about, but it
Yeah.
exists and you do them, and
You mean like
that's
you
how
went
it
to work
happens.
today?
Yeah. And then
we're
So
like, hey,
left
Caleb, after
work,
work, why don't we?
left work early, expecting to get home an hour earlier. Instead, came here, and I normally would have already been home by now, even
Yeah.
if I stayed another hour.
Yeah, it's you gotta get up for work in what, like 8 hours from now
I don't know,
ish.
something like that. Yeah,
That's a little longer than that, a little longer.
it'll be all right. I've
Yeah.
done it enough. It's okay.
Yeah. So we had talked about, we kind of like mulled over some different topics, some different thoughts of things to discuss with epiphanies that you've had in the past or recently. Some interesting topics to talk about. What's on your mind today?
I'm sure I had something on my mind until you asked me that. Actually, on the way over here, I was thinking about, have you seen The Last of Us on it's HBO Max
Which one is?
series? The fungi take over people's bodies, and their people's bodies are just a host for the
Is
microorganisms or whatever.
that's
I
not?
haven't seen it, no.
It's based off the video game.
I was gonna. Is that the one where they like live in the bunkers? And the girl wears the blue suit there, the mech guy.
No, that's Fallout.
Oh, I was thinking
That's
Fallout.
Fallout. Yeah.
Okay,
That's
no, I've
Fallout.
seen Fallout. I haven't seen Last of Us.
So, anyways, it's irrelevant. But I'd watched it before, and I was nothing really else to watch right now, so I was watching that again until I got to one episode, and I was like, I'm gonna skip this entire episode because there is one character in here that I don't want to see at all.
Yeah,
It's like the acting not good, like, and it's really obvious because the other actors are so good
yeah,
inside of the series, and the casting's great on it, except for this one character. And how I guess it would make more sense if you've seen it. How it's broken up is it shows like past events and stuff, and it'll focus on characters that will be important, like in the next episode,
yeah.
or a character's past experience or something like that. And so that character only exists in that episode.
Gotcha.
That's it for them.
Yeah.
So yeah, you never have to see him again. We just don't watch that episode. But I was trying to think of like a book or something. I don't know if you guys were like that, where you're like, the show's so great, that one character ruined it. This one actor basically ruined it. Like it's just like that sore thumb.
I mean, there's Jar Jar Binks.
There's
We've
Jar
talked
Jar
about
Binks.
Jar Jar
Yeah,
Binks.
Yeah, it's definitely Jar Jar Binks, but it's especially when everything else is so good,
Yeah.
that one thing stands out. Really, it's so obvious compared to
Yeah.
everything else.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. I know that's happened, but I'm trying to think of some specifics of when I've been like there's times where you can see an actor or an actress and you're like, they don't seem like they're that character.
Right.
They're somebody who's pretending to be that character.
Yeah. Well, I'm kind of wondering now, like, are the other actors on set like, we're great, this person sucks?
Yeah.
I mean, it has to be pretty obvious to them. Like, especially watching it back, they have to think, wow, this guy really stands out because they're terrible compared to everybody else.
Yeah.
I was trying to think of a book or something like that where it's like, man, that character in that book just
I don't know how that would I don't know how that would come out from a book perspective where you're like, this character is just
annoying
shouldn't be in
or
the book.
something. Yeah, there are a lot of characters in books that are just annoying. Where you're like, I don't like their attitude. Like when you get to a chapter and you're like, okay, they're heavily in this chapter.
Yeah.
You're like, okay, it's like, I'm gonna skim this page. I'm not gonna read this whole page.
Oh, there's thinking of shows that are kind of like that, movies, characters, whatnot. I actually had a conversation a little bit earlier today with a guy at work that he went and he saw the Deadpool and Wolverine over the weekend. And so we have another puppy visitor who might be coming to say hello with her clacky nails. If you hear the clacking, that's Molly walking on the floor.
Go lay down.
Anyway, but we started talking about the Deadpool series, and I'm like, well, the first Deadpool movie, I thought it was pretty good. The second Deadpool movie, well, I'm like, I didn't care about the characters, the other characters that were in it. But
Right.
then we specifically started talking about Colossus, the silver guy.
Yeah.
And even when I used to watch the X-Men cartoons in the 90s, that Colossus character, I always hated that guy. I'm like, he has like these moral qualms and I'm like, you can have morals, you can have everything, but he has these qualms that are so rigid that it make him stupid.
Right. I see what you mean. Yeah.
But the character itself, he comes across as like big dumb meathead guy. But then he'll talk about things and you're like, oh, he seems like actually intelligent. He just whatever code he lives by it makes him stupid. Whatever code he lives by, I'm like, makes him act stupid. It drives me crazy. Were we getting crackling?
Yeah,
in the mic?
a little bit.
Okay, but not enough to make it cut out or anything.
No,
Might have been on my side. I don't know.
no. When he moved earlier, it crackled and.
We got to figure out why it does that. Drives me crazy.
Maybe you have a wrapper in your pocket.
Maybe. It's
Makes sense.
my pocket full of Rice Krispies.
It's your magnetic personality.
Maybe.
Yeah, maybe you're Colossus and you really have metal under that shirt.
Maybe Magneto's like, oh, I like Colossus. I'm gonna make your microphone crackle.
Yeah. Well, I wonder, like, just, and I have no idea if this is true or not, but I'm wondering if, because he's so strong, almost invincible,
Yeah.
that they had to make him so moral. Kind of like with Superman or something, where it's like, if you have a character that can do anything with zero consequences,
Yeah.
you have to build in some mechanism to keep them reined in.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it really is like, well, they can just do whatever. So why am I reading this?
Well,
There's zero
yeah.
consequences.
Then you get, kind of the flip of that is, oh man, the name just left my head. From The Boys.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Gosh dang it.
Yep.
Now I
that
can't
guy.
think of his name.
Yep. That guy.
I can picture him.
It's the something. Why am I not being able to remember that?
I don't know.
Oh my gosh, we're all idiots. Don't judge us if you're listening to this episode.
Is it
Homelander.
Yeah.
Homelander, yes.
Yeah, Homelander.
Yeah, well, like Homelander, the thing that reins him in is also what makes him act the way that he does, which is his whole childhood. He went through all
Right.
this childhood trauma and everything, the way he was raised in by like this institution of people who just there was no feeling or caring or no connection to anything.
Yeah.
But that also was what drove him to where like he has this innate desire that people have to like him. It's like Jerry.
Right.
Like,
Yeah,
how
but if he
often is he
didn't
going
care
to check
about
YouTube?
that, then he would just do whatever. He'd just do what it shows in his head sometimes. Where he's like, yeah, I just lasered everybody around here.
Yeah, yeah. I'm curious with that show. Is that going to happen at some point, where he's just like, I don't care about this anymore.
And it
I'm
started
basically a
little
god.
bit.
I can do whatever I want. So you're all just going to do everything I want, or you're all going to die.
Yeah.
Right. They started that a little bit in this last episode. But that's also how that you would prove that the Earth is not flat, because this laser beam would go off the curvature of the Earth, so you wouldn't be able to laser everybody on Earth at the same time.
Yeah,
So there's that. At least some people past the arc would survive.
yeah.
Past the curvature, past the horizon.
You'd have to bounce it off from satellites. Well, there's enough Starlinks now that he could be like, pew, 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 pew,
That's
pew.
Elon's actual plan. That's what he's actually got cooking now.
Yeah.
But no, yeah, I don't know. That's what I was thinking about on the way over here, is how the character can definitely ruin a book or a. It's harder with books because you can't just skip well, that might be important. I guess I better read that chapter.
Yeah.
But I have reread books where I've skipped over chapters.
Here's something that drives me crazy. This isn't particular to a specific character, but it happens with a lot of characters. And I'm like, I don't know that I've seen this happen in real life ever, where it's done in writing and in movies all the time, where I assume something about you. I assume like you went out and wrecked my car and didn't tell me about it. And instead of me saying, Caleb, why did you wreck my car? I just assume it, and then you come in and you try to say, hey, I saw your car was wrecked, and how did that happen? Whatever. You just come in, and then I'm just like, I'm not going to let you say any words. I'm mad at you, and we can't ever be friends ever again.
Right.
And I'm just going to keep talking and not let you say anything because I know you wrecked my car, and I'm going to be very angry, and I'm going to keep talking while I walk out the door, and then I'm going to shut the door in your face.
Yeah.
I'm like, that happens in books, movies, stories all the time.
I think that's called bad writing.
I don't know.
think
It
that's what
happens a
we call
lot.
that.
Yeah. The total lack of communication. It's like the conversation is so one-sided, and all the other person would have to do is say one or two sentences, and it would, it would diffuse the situation, and then they could talk.
Yeah.
It's like,
And like disagreements happen and people assume things and they get in arguments all the time.
yeah.
But it's this specific scenario of I just think this about you and it's this big drama thing and I'm not even going to let you say anything about it because I think so much that you did it, that you had to have done it.
I think those writers at some point, somebody did that phrase of, you know what assuming does, right?
Maybe.
And then they were like, that's stuck in their head, and they're like, yeah, that's great. That's hilarious. I'm going to use that.
Yeah. But I don't know where that idea came from.
Yeah, I really think that just came from lazy writing,
I don't
where
know.
it's, we have to set up some type of tension, some type of plot here, or something like, we got to get this person out of the situation. How do we do that?
Yeah.
Don't let them talk.
Yeah.
That's a great way to do it. They cannot defend themselves at all.
Yeah.
You're like, yeah, nobody's ever done that in the history of the world, ever.
Yeah.
Where they're like, oh, you're accusing me of something? Oh, I can't. Wow, oh, my voice. I can't. Wow, I can't defend myself now. I'm not going to say anything. Yeah, it's never happened.
Yeah.
Yeah, never. No way.
I mean, like it works if, say, you're in like some clandestine organization, or you're part of where it's espionage and counter espionage and spies and counter spies.
Well, I guess
and,
it'd work in the military, where they're just like, nope, shut up. You're like, okay, well, I guess I better. I'm like, all right, okay, I'm going to sit here and take it.
yeah. Well, I'm thinking in terms of like, I think this person did something. I can't ask them about it because if they are a spy and I suspect them of being a spy, like I suspect this, if they are, they might kill all of us.
Well, that would be
Or
different.
it would undermine this whole, somebody who's an undercover cop who's like, I think this other guy on the team is also an undercover cop, and we just don't know that we're both undercover cops.
Right. Well,
But I can't ask.
There'd be a difference on acting upon an assumption,
Yeah.
which I'm like, okay, yeah, I could see that for sure. I mean, I deal with people every day at work. I'm like, yeah, people definitely act on assumptions.
Yes.
Or, oh, I heard this or whatever. I'm going to act upon it. But yeah, the difference is I have never had confronted anybody about anything and they not get a chance to say their piece.
Yeah.
Like that, yeah, I've never had that happen. I mean, unless they just really want to get it away from me, I guess.
Yeah.
And that'd be the other scenario.
I mean, I guess there could always be, there's always like passive aggression where there's two people that live in a house and one of them has their special piece of pie in the refrigerator and they come home and they open the refrigerator door and the pie is gone. And it's like, there's only one other person in the house. And then they're like, I'm going to be angry about this. But they didn't know that,
Right.
that the other person in the house actually had a friend, come visit them. And while they were in the bathroom, they ate their pie and left. So the other person doesn't even know that the pie's gone.
I think the problem here, though, is that we're all male. So we can't understand it. I mean, have you ever told somebody, well, if you don't know why I'm angry, I'm not going to tell you? Because I've never done that.
Yeah.
You're just going to have to guess. Don't guess wrong. I think that's the issue we're dealing with here.
Maybe.
But I think it like from a writing perspective, which I think is something that you guys actually do really well in your book, is how much are your characters are actual people and how an actual person is going to respond.
Yeah.
Whereas it's, I think a lot of books or movies, or especially movies, series, it's, that doesn't matter. Audience engagement matters. Plot moving forward matters more than like the actual human side or the actual realism side of, okay, a person's going to actually do this or respond in this way. And that's where thinking about it, sitcoms, it was a big point. There was kind of a shift in writing cartoons, sitcoms, movies, and things like that, where people would interrupt each other.
Yeah.
So if you watch back in 90s, especially and stuff like that, a person would deliver a joke or say a line, and there would be a brief pause, like almost unnoticeable. If you watch for it, it's there,
Yeah.
where it's sentence, your sentence, my line, your line,
Yeah.
my line, your line, and then writing shifted to where people actually started talking over each other and responding like a real conversation.
Yeah.
And that, I mean, it really changed the dynamic of different shows and things like that. Especially something like Always Sunny in Philadelphia.
Yeah.
They really lean into that. I mean, it's part of their characters' personalities where they will just blatantly interrupt somebody or slap somebody or punch somebody or whatever
Yeah.
to get their point across.
Fight children.
Whatever it takes to get so they're heard.
Yeah.
But their writing later on, you could see especially leaned heavily into that, where no, this is an actual conversation.
Yeah.
We're not portraying these people. We are actual people. These are actual people having a conversation. So yeah, I think that would be one reason for something like that, is just how much do you want your characters to actually be like people?
Yeah. That is something that I'm reading The Wheel of Time again. Well, listening. Some people are like, audiobooks aren't reading. Okay, whatever. I'm listening to Wheel of Time while I commute back and forth to work again. And as much as I enjoy The Wheel of Time, one of the things that drives me crazy from a character perspective is the characters who you see a little bit of that assuming and not communicating with, like Rand and Moraine,
Right.
where this isn't little things that's happening. It's the fate of the world is at stake.
Yeah.
Or with Nynaeve and Egwene and Elaine, and they're going to Tyr, and then Matt is gonna go out, and it's like they on little things. You ate my piece of pie, and I'm mad at you, but I'm just gonna be mad for a little while, but I'm not gonna tell you why I'm mad. I'm just gonna be mad because I suspect, like, as far as I'm concerned, nobody else could have eaten my piece of pie. But take that and be like, on a planetary scale, the destruction of all life.
Right.
But I'm not going to say anything, even though me not saying anything to you means the world will literally catch on fire and everybody will burn. Like, that's the scale we're talking about. And it's, I'm going to act on an assumption and get really mad and over talk and not listen and go off and do whatever. And it's not over you or my jeans, and you spilled grape juice on my jeans and I'm upset about it. You borrowed them. You didn't even ask. You spilled grape juice. It's you are doing this thing, going down this path, and I'm not going to help you because I'm mad at you about going down this major path, and the world might end.
That happens a lot.
What are you talking about?
That happens a lot in books and series with the mentor and tutor. Or is it tutor?
Mentee,
Mentee?
mentor, mentee.
Yeah,
Mentor,
tutor,
mentee.
tootie.
If there's
Yeah.
more of them, mentos.
Oh, Mentos. Yeah, it happens a lot with stuff like that where it's, yeah, the younger person's angry, and or even like in a parent child dynamic where they're
Yeah.
like, I'm angry and I'm getting out of here. It's that what's off camera can't be seen.
Yeah.
Where they're like, they're just outside the door. They literally just stepped outside, and the
Yeah.
parent turns around. Oh, I can't even. Oh my gosh, what are we gonna do? They're 2 feet away.
Yeah.
They're still right there. Yeah, I mean, if your kid in real life is like, screw you, slamming the door, whatever, like that's how you're gonna respond, and just turn around and be, yeah, the door's shut. I don't,
Yeah.
they don't exist anymore. I don't know. I'm gonna call somebody or whatever the heck. Same with like the mentor thing, where it's always this, oh, they're headed down that path. Oh, what am I gonna do? You know, and It's
Yeah.
like they literally just walked away.
Yeah.
Got on the ship or whatever it is.
Oh,
You're like, how can you? Oh, you're leaving. Yep,
I
but they're 50 yards away from you.
not even 50. There's stuff where they get up and they're like, you would get up to leave, and I'd be like, Caleb, Caleb, wait, Caleb. And then I just stop on camera right here. I barely sit up out of the chair. Caleb, no. And then I wait, and I have to watch you. Up, you're going to walk through that room, go through that door. I can still see you going through that door. Up, you're going to turn. Well, I can still see you through the window. Get
Right. I forgot my coat. Just say, sorry about that.
Yeah, things like that drive me crazy.
Yeah,
The same thing of
it's about plot moving forward. I mean,
how many
that's really
times
what it's about.
has a character. I don't know if we've mentioned this on a pod. Pet peeve. A character, one, they parked way out in the middle of this park. I don't know why they parked so far out in the parking lot.
Yeah.
But whatever. They got to walk, across 3 other parking lots to get to their car. And it's the only car. And they were the only one there the whole time. I got to go into the office. I got to do this thing. I'm going to be there late. I'll be the only one there. And it shows them driving into the parking lot, and there is nobody there. And all it shows is them pull into a parking space. So they're parked. But then they come out, and you're like, wait a minute. They were the only one there, and they knew they were going to be the only one there.
Right.
Why did they park in parking lot C, at the airport, when there are no other cars there at all? And then they walk to their car, and they're anxiously looking around, and they're jingling their keys. And then they get to the car, and it already showed the parking lot. There's nothing for like 200 yards in every direction. There's lights and their car and flatness. That's it. Then they turn and they put their key in the door, and all of a sudden a hand is like over their mouth, whatever.
Right.
Where was this person hiding? What are they like a magician? Were they hiding under the, how hard it is? How much work it would take and how much noise it would make to scramble out from under the
I'm
person's
not admitting that I know how to do that or what that's like.
I mean, working on an F-250.
Yeah,
that is
that's pretty
lifted,
easily. That's all right.
Even that, like crawling
Even that,
underneath
yeah.
there, you would be heard. And you're like, wait, what? I can see you right there
Yeah.
under all this clearance that's under my car. In fact, I saw you from way back there.
Plus, I know how much your clothes actually stick to pavement.
Yeah.
You guys do too. Where you're like, your clothes do not slide on pavement unless you're going extremely fast.
Yeah, and
Your
even
clothes
then,
are like-
they still stick and then they come off.
Yeah, it's a lot of grip there. So yeah, you're not just slipping out. It's I gotta scooch a little bit here.
Yeah. But no, scenes like that, whether it's in a book or in a movie or whatever, like where in the heck was this person?
Right. Or like
It's
the army
they're
appears
off
out of
camera.
nowhere, and they're like, "No scouts this time? You guys didn't
Yeah.
have any scouts out or anything like that?" It's like this whole book, you've had scouts out, like a mile in
Yeah.
advance. But for this scene, it just came out of nowhere. I don't know, man. Not
Why
gonna
didn't we
go
have
on
any scouts out? Well, it's No Scout Tuesday. Didn't you
Yeah,
know
we
that?
don't do that. We don't do that right now. Yeah, I don't know. I don't think it's necessarily lazy. It's just, yeah, we have to move this forward. We have to keep it moving, and to make it realistic just isn't realistic.
Yeah. I don't know. I like being able to suspend reality, put myself into a world where there's dragons or magic, or even see through the eyes of somebody like a crime investigator
Right.
or whatever. But it drives me crazy when realism doesn't exist. Unless you just throw it all out the window and you're like,
Right.
Monty Python. We're going to Monty Python this.
We've talked about this before, where it's here's the rules that you've established within this.
Yeah.
So if you've established these rules, stay within those rules.
Yeah.
You know, like, yeah, Deadpool can heal. He still feels pain. You know, so yeah, he's still going to be in pain.
Yeah.
Don't all of a sudden be like, well, you can do whatever. You know, or different things where, like with magic, or yes, magic exists in this world. So this excuse of, well, it's magic. Yes, but we've already established that you can't return people from the dead with a wave of your wand.
Yeah.
That doesn't exist. So don't do that. You've already stated you can't do this in this world.
What about movie scenes where they do this in a lot of movies, especially when it's getting toward the end, where the person's laying there and then they're like, and they're not breathing and they feel for a pulse and they're like, no pulse. They try to do chest compressions, whatever. Maybe they don't know how to do CPR or whatever, but it's like clear indication they're dead. Whether they're laying on the ground, they were drowning, whatever, and all of a sudden, like, what made their hearts start beating again?
CPR?
I don't know, like the person may not even know how to do CPR.
Oh, yeah, where they're just like, come on, come on, come on. Let me slap you a little bit. It's like, I've never read that in a medical journal.
Yeah.
Just a few slappies will get it done.
What's the shoot? Tom Cruise and Nicole Kidman, Far and Away. Is that the name of it? Where
I
they
don't know.
travel
I've never
from,
seen a movie called Far and Away.
where they come from Ireland, make it to America, and then they travel out west.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's
So like in that,
yeah,
they're
it's
like,
like a Western type thing or
Yeah.
something. Do you say Tom Cruise,
Yeah.
though?
yeah, it's
Yeah.
Tom Cruise and Nicole Kidman.
Is it?
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure it's
I've not seen the
Far
whole
and
movie. I've
Away.
only seen parts of it, but I know what you're talking about.
So in that
I don't know.
movie, like there's a scene, Tom Cruise, they do at some point, they set it up, they talk about like death and, what do you think happens at one point. So it's a little bit of foreshadowing kind of thing. But he gets thrown off a horse and lands on a rock from way up in the air, right on the back of his head. Whap! And he's laying there, and his eyes are open, and he's not breathing, and the camera's zooming in on him while Nicole Kidman is trying, and it's like he's not blinking, and he's laying there like this, like, and the scene just zooms in, and even the length of the scene is like 3 minutes, and you're like, up, he's dead, and all of a sudden he's like,
With no brain injury?
with nothing, and then he just sits up, and then he's like everything's okay, and I'm like, you just fell from like 9 feet in the air and slammed your skull onto rock enough that you were dead, but you suddenly just gasped, and now you're not dead, and not only that, you're the perfect picture of health. Of course, it is Tom Cruise, and he's like 60, and some like maybe.
That's what Scientology does.
I guess so. His character
The
was a
one benefit
Scientologist.
I got from this was I can smash my head on a rock and I'll be okay.
Yeah,
That's it. Nothing else.
I guess.
Yeah, actually, I would be fine with that in movies where I go, all right, yeah, in real life, sure, not going to happen. What I have an issue with is the next guy who's not an A-lister in the movie gets a pebble thrown at his head and he dies instantly.
Yes.
Totally dead. It was like a little tiny pebble, and you're like, okay, well, it's not it's not really comparable going on here. Like, this guy gets shot 50 times and he's okay. I'm like, okay, well, just make him get shot once or whatever. Like, make it a little comparable here, where it's no bad guy ever knows how to fight, ever. And you're like,
Except for the one main bad
except for
guy.
the one main bad guy who didn't teach anybody else anything the whole time they've been hanging out and doing nothing all day. Nobody knows how to shoot. Nobody knows how to fight.
Well, it's not
And
that
you're
nobody
okay,
knows
well,
how
it's
to.
just not, like, make it comparable. Like, if this guy's trained 3 years, and he's good. Why didn't this guy be good after training 3 years?
Yeah.
You know, it's just not.
Well, the problem isn't like all of these people know how to shoot. The problem is somebody trained them that if you're 10, 11 feet away from the person who you need to shoot, you have to hold your gun, point it up in the air, and run up to them, and then try to shoot
And then
them
try to shoot them from a foot away.
right there, a
Right
foot
there.
away.
Right.
But somehow they always grab the gun and take it away from you.
Right.
But I'm like, that's just bad training. They shouldn't have trained their bad guys, their henchmen, to run up to the good guy and try to pistol whip them as they shoot them.
That's a good point. That's fair.
Maybe it's like Master of Disguise, how you slap your enemies, and so it degrades them.
You don't know the
Better
power
than-
of the pistol whip,
Yeah,
apparently.
it's you got to slap them with the pistol. You can't just shoot them. You have to degrade them by slapping them with it first.
Or the main bad guy, the leader guy is like, his men are getting shot up, and he's like, take him alive. And they're like, well, we're all getting killed. And they're like, yeah, but don't kill him, though. Like, but we're all dying right now. Well, still get him alive.
Yeah,
At some point, someone's like, no. This is,
like I don't
This
get
is
paid enough for
absurd.
this.
like, half of us are dead right now, and you still want this person. We could have killed him multiple times.
Yeah,
That's always it, too. In that instance, they could have killed them easily. When the person says, I want them alive.
Yeah.
Then they're like, we had so many opportunities, but we just didn't do it.
yeah.
When they're like, kill them, they're like, hey, it's impossible. It's not going to happen, man. We have no chances of ever getting a shot at this guy.
What's the song Poncho? They'll all the federales say they could have had him any day.
Mm-hmm.
They just let old Poncho go out of kindness, I suppose.
Right.
Like maybe it's something like that. Yeah, we got to give you. I wanted you to have a sporting chance. Or when two people have and they're like, let's settle this like men and put the guns down. There was one movie, I can't remember what it was, where the person's like, let's settle this hand to hand, and then they drop their gun. They're like, okay. The person drops their gun, and then the other person's like,
Yeah.
what do you think? I'm an idiot? I'm not gonna. I brought a gun
Yeah.
so that I could shoot you, and you just walked up like, let's settle this. They go like, no, I'm just gonna shoot you in the face.
Well, that's something that, well, I mean, like I was saying, we were talking on the way over here about like romanticizing things,
Yeah,
you know, and that's definitely part of it where this, you know, special forces guy, whatever, blah, blah, blah. And he's like saying crap like that. Like,
yeah,
you know what? We're going to duke it out, actually. We're going to this or that. I'm like, okay. You know somebody that's highly trained in fighting people and has trained with special forces and was on like anti-terrorist task force and stuff.
yeah,
Would this person ever say that?
yeah,
Ever?
yeah. What doesn't happen.
Never. Like,
Well, it's we try to take what it seems like to me is like if there's two people that disagree, or two people that like maybe they're neighbors, and sometimes they're kind of friends, sometimes they're like frenemies, and then they're like, that's it, we're gonna fight this out. But neither of them wants to kill each other. They just want to be like, I just want to beat you up a little bit, and the other guy's like, well, I want to beat you up a little bit. And they duke it out or whatever, and then they're like, okay, well, we got that out of our system. Let's go get a drink. It's like that, only to the death. Like, but to the death, that's stupid.
Two to the death? Mm-hmm. For the princess?
For the princess.
Mm-hmm. Well, even then, I mean, he could have pulled out his sword and been like, once. I mean, I guess he had the dagger to her neck, but then he did put it away. And at that point, Wesley definitely could have been like, well, I can take you in a fight. So
Yeah.
like, I'll just kick your butt.
Remember that whole thing where you said I'd studied, so I was very smart. but you also know that I'm strong because I beat your giant. Well, it would be really smart and strong of me to, as soon as you put your knife down and let the princess go over there, that I just chop your head off.
Right. There's that.
It would take a lot of strength for me to swing that sword, and
But
it would be smart of me to do.
that wouldn't make for a great movie.
It wouldn't.
It wouldn't be a classic scene in a movie.
Yeah. It wouldn't have fell for one of the classic blunders.
Right. I mean, you have to give some leeway.
Yeah.
But yeah, people definitely just take it to the extremes, take it way too far. And those are the chapters that I'm skipping over.
Yeah.
And I'm not watching and I'm not paying attention to.
Yeah. It's kind of like the you with romanticizing. There's so many things. We were having a conversation just the other day about what the quote unquote good old days. Like, yes, there were times when stuff moved, life seemed to move more slowly. And maybe there was kind of a period where we didn't quite have the technology to make life move really fast, but we had enough technology for comforts, but we still kind of had this older, the slow life mentality. I don't know, maybe it was never really that way. But anytime I've heard people say, like, oh, if we could just go back to this time, or imagine living here, and I'm like, here's my counterpoint to that. Toilet paper. You want another counterpoint? Hot running water. You want another one? Shingles. And not that kind of, both were.
Yeah.
And that
Both of them.
shingles and shingles.
Well, that's just the other day I was telling somebody about that, where there's a hunting video and the guy's like, oh, you've got this big blind and your heater in there and all that, and that's not, basically saying that's not real hunting. And,
Yeah.
and there's this, I'm assuming like his granddaughter or something there, and that's why I make you sit in a stand, and sometimes you hunt on the ground, and because that's just how it is, and that's how it's always blah blah blah. And I'm like, well, you're not using a spear,
Yeah.
are you? So not
You
very.
can hunt with an atlatl.
I'm like, not very traditional.
Atlatl. How do you?
Outlawed.
Yeah, I've always said
Atlatl.
atlatl. The guy at work, because we were talking about hunting because it's deer season, and he's like, "Yeah, you can hunt with an atlatl."
I
Like,
say atlatl.
like,
Yeah,
what?
outlawed is what I've always heard.
He said like atlatl.
Yeah, I think
An
that's wrong.
atlatl. I'm like,
Pretty sure that's wrong.
I don't know.
That sounds stupid. I was
I
saying,
kind of thought that.
now you're making me think of something else, but because I'll tell you later. I'll remember it later. I can't think of it right now, but it's hilarious. But yeah, it's like, yeah, he's not using a spear, so you're like, well, not very traditional, obviously.
Yeah.
But I'm like, yeah, if you can afford those creature comforts, then get the creature comforts, obviously. But yeah, people definitely have that mentality of, yeah, it's how I remember it is different than how it actually was.
Yeah.
We have a good way of tricking ourselves into doing that, for sure.
Yes. Very much so. Very much. Well, it's been interesting.
Yeah.
we kind of bounced around all over the place a little bit.
I
but-
think, I mean, if you really enjoyed people complaining about stuff, then this is a good episode for you.
What grinds your gears?
Yeah.
That, yeah.
I mean,
maybe,
that's,
maybe we should name
yeah,
that'll be
exactly.
this episode. What grinds your gears?
yeah, I mean, that's like 90% of what we talk about in real life anyways.
Yeah.
Well, I already know your opinions on most things. I'm like, all right, well, we can skip past asking what you think about it. I already know you think about it.
Yeah. Well, but it has been fun.
Yeah, absolutely.
So appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, I always appreciate having you.
Yeah.
Yep, we need to do some follow up on, well, once you get into like doing more leather work and stuff, do some more follow up on that.
Yeah, that'll probably sometime beginning next year, honestly. Like here through the end of the year, I'm
Yeah.
pretty swamped on stuff. So
Well, holiday season's coming up. You just started a new shift at work.
Right.
It's changed everything around. So, do the leather, Caleb.
Yeah,
Come
yeah. I
on,
want to
do all
get some more
things.
stuff done, and then get some actual topics hammered out to discuss and things like that.
Sounds good. Well, thanks for coming on again.
Yeah.
And for you listening, thanks for joining us. Hopefully you enjoyed our little discussion on things that grind our gears. So we'll see you again next time. Till then, go in good
Go in
spirits.
spirits.
Thanks for listening to the Creators Guild podcast. Don't forget to get your copy of A Flight from Shadows, available on Amazon. While you're there, please rate it and give it a review. If you like the Creators Guild, please like and subscribe, and make sure to share it with your friends. Until next time, go in good spirits.